Kia ora, welcome to episode 49 of the SWNZ Podcast, the podcast for New Zealand Star Wars fans. My name is Matt.
And my name is Christy.
Another great week for news from a galaxy far, far away, so let's jump in and talk Star Wars. First on our agenda is Disney Plus Day, which is coming up this Friday, November the 12th. It celebrates 2 years of Disney Plus being available around the globe, including New Zealand, obviously. There is some distinctly interesting Star Wars content coming out, but also promises and hints about other Star Wars material that we may be seeing or getting a hint as to where Disney Plus is going to be trending in terms of Star Wars content. So coming out, we presume, at 9 p.m. on Friday is the Boba Fett documentary, Under the Helmet of the Legacy of Boba Fett, a special that takes a look at the history of Boba Fett behind the scenes and presumably in canon on screen, and we're very much looking forward to that. And there's even a possibility that it may start to touch on Boba Fett's appearance in The Mandalorian and the upcoming book of Boba Fett. That's the big bit of confirmed Star Wars news. But from very early on Saturday morning, from about 3 a.m. New Zealand time, there is going to be quite an extensive social media blitz spanning a few days where there's going to be all sorts of information about what we're expecting to see on Disney Plus over the next little while. So obviously in the context of that, there's a little bit of conversation and speculation that we will start to see more information about the upcoming series, Star Wars series expected on Disney Plus next year. There's even a little bit of a hope that we could see something like a Kenobi trailer coming out over the weekend or as early as Friday night, Saturday morning. That would be super, super cool.
As they say, fans can follow along with Disney Plus on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for first looks, new trailers, exclusive clips, and appearances from Disney Plus creators and stars for upcoming content from Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, and in select international territories, Star. So they do specifically mention Star Wars here. So we don't know whether the first looks, new trailers, clips, any of that could be sort of teased as Star Wars, but of course that could be across their whole range. But considering the hype they are pushing towards this, you know that one of their big tentpole things tend to be, although Disney is very beloved, the thing that gets the internet really going is Marvel and Star Wars new announcements, teasers, things like that. So they know that if they really, really want to get a big buzz around this day, then revealing something new and unexpected for those two franchises would really get the internet going. So I'm fingers crossed. We know that filming has wrapped for Andor. We've seen tiny snippets of on-set footage back when they sort of gave us like a glimpse of, oh yeah, we're filming Andor, but they could seriously give us a trailer or some sort of meaty content
reveal.
That's the thing.
There's both Andor and Kenobi, everything's in the can in terms of filming, so even if it's not assembled to the point of a trailer, we know that behind the scenes sort of preview reels are a good way to get content out and get hype building. And yeah, this is Disney Plus Day is a big deal. It's 2 years of Disney Plus being in existence, and subscriber rates have surpassed expectations and surpassed goals. So obviously this is a big push for them to just blow the competition out of the water, which is fine for us because it's where Star Wars lives at this point in time. So yeah, I can really foresee that we'll get some really, really fun teasers coming out of this coming weekend.
I mean, they say first looks. I mean, they could say and appearances from creators and stars. I mean, they could have filmed a little segment of Ewan McGregor on set in full Kenobi gear doing some little, 60-second blip for this. I mean, that would just be so cool. Yeah,
well, I know that any Ewan McGregor talking Star Wars will blow most people's minds, so they know that that's just marketing gold, but that's just speculation at this point. But, I think it's not unreasonable to hope that, at least in this Under the Helmet, the Legacy of Boba Fett special, that we will see it touching on the modern era of material as well as the historic era of material, and just fingers crossed for something else. Now, there's a couple of other really interesting things related to Disney Plus and Disney Plus Day, though. As part of the promotion and the push to get significant subscriber growth, there is a global offer for people who are not currently subscribers to be able to subscribe for $1.99 for 1 month, so less than $2. And interestingly, that price point is around the world in many countries in local currencies. So Americans pay $1.99 for 1 month. But if you're not a current Disney Plus subscriber, you can consider subscribing for your first month, only costing $1.99. That offer is open until the 15th of November. So your first month won't quite take you through all the way to the release of the Book of Boba Fett, and the pricing after that is the standard $12.99 New Zealand dollars per month. But still, that's a pretty good introductory offer if you want to get in there and catch up with seasons of The Mandalorian or The Bad Batch in advance of the Book of Boba Fett coming out. So just to state that again, $1.99 to subscribe to Disney Plus for 1 month. Offer is open until the 15th of November and applies to new Disney Plus subscribers and returning subscribers with no current active subscription. Now, the other interesting thing related to Disney Plus that's starting to come out of the promotional material already is that not Star Wars, but they're focusing on the amount of Marvel content that's on Disney Plus, and in particular the notion that a lot of these Marvel films have IMAX versions. They've screened on IMAX screens. So what Disney Plus is doing is that they're making these IMAX versions available on Disney Plus via a versions button, a versions tab on the movie title page on the menu page. And this kind of opens the door for not just IMAX versions of movies, but frankly any other versions of movies. Now obviously there's a ton of fans out there who like watching the unadulterated original theatrical release of the original trilogy, for instance. It's entirely conceivable with this new feature on Disney Plus that, as well as the most recent versions of movies, we will be able to access older versions of movies or director's cuts of movies.
This is particularly more of a reality, I think, or a possibility, because back in the day there used to be this discussion, Disney owns it, but it was 20th Century Fox and all that kind of stuff, and that question is completely gone now that Disney fully owns 20th Century Fox.
They're talking about the original trilogy.
Yeah, so there isn't this kind of, who has the license, who gets to monetize it and use it and distribute it. Now that's not an issue, so they know that would be a pretty good incentive to get people to subscribe if they were like, okay, here's the original version, here's the current sort of 4K, all the bells and whistles, here's the IMAX version. It would be really interesting to have all these sort of different versions all available within Disney Plus. It would mean that people aren't having to have a bookcase full of all their old DVDs and VHS trying to get all the different versions all together in one area. I think that would be a good incentive, and it wouldn't exactly take a lot of work. They must have these copies stored somewhere, so it wouldn't be like a big deal for them to put that up there. We don't have director's cut versions of Star Wars, but there are 3D versions of some of the films as well for some fans that invested in the sort of at-home tech to do 3D. It would be interesting to see if those show up on Disney Plus in the future as well. It just opens up so many opportunities here. Obviously they're starting with the MCU, but yeah, the question is obviously posed there. We could see more Star Wars versions available as well.
Yeah, so that's a very fun thought. So obviously that was a big conversation about Disney Plus Day coming up this Friday. Some definite Star Wars content, some speculated or anticipated Star Wars content, and one way or another I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in next week's podcast. So we'll be returning to the notion of Disney Plus Day this time next week for our 50th podcast actually, so tune in then. A couple of other really big topics that we want to hit on as well today though. The first up is Star Wars The Old Republic. Now we talk about this a fair bit in podcasts, but there's a couple of really key bits of information that we want to hit on today. As you know, Star Wars The Old Republic has been going for 10 years. It's coming up on its 10th anniversary in December of this year. And as part of that, the official SWTOR channels have re-released the original cinematic trailers in 4K. The first one out is the Deceived trailer, which is the first trailer to have been released. It's the one that features Darth Malgus in his prime, in his peak, and it's a fantastic video with graphics that stands up despite its age. They're going to release the rest of the trailers, which is an interesting thing because added up cumulatively, there's quite a lot of Star Wars content buried in these trailers. They're quite long trailers. They're actually sort of story excerpts more than they are just teaser trailers. So the Deceived was actually the first trailer to be revealed. Chronologically, it's the third trailer of the first 3 pre-release trailers, which is a little bit confusing, but I'll just break that down a little bit. It's worth breaking down and looking into. Deceived was first launched in June, so middle of the year 2009, more than 2 years before the game came out. All the trailers are between 4 and 6, just over 6 minutes long. In chronological order, they are titled Return, which came out in 2011, still prior to the game release, Hope, which came out in 2010, and Deceived, which came out in 2009. So they were about a year apart, all in advance of the game. And then later, once the game was released, there was a couple of other cinematic trailers called Sacrifice and Betrayed. They're all super high quality CG, not in-game footage, but really cool promotional material. The trailers span a story arc of 28 years in total, and wrap up 10 years prior to when the game story actually kicks off. So you don't need to be involved in the game to really sort of appreciate this intro to the Star Wars Old Republic era. I'm sure most of you will have seen all of these trailers, but if you haven't, you can now check them out in 4K as they're going to be released over the next little while. So again, Deceived, Return and Hope are the pre-game release trailers, and they are being released in 4K.
I remember the hype around these trailers when they came out. The dynamic fighting and the sheer sort of number of Sith that were in the original Deceived trailer. If you don't recall, it has a scene where the Sith crash a big shuttle into the Jedi Temple, and all of these Sith come running out to attack all of the Jedi that are rushing to defend the temple. So you have this huge big sort of brawl of all these Jedi and Sith. And for all the movies with their sort of minimal presence of the Sith, kind of, the rule of two and that, it was just so exciting to just see just huge big mobs of Sith and Jedi going at it. And of course that is largely what the game is. Yeah. You've got a lot of Sith, a lot of Jedi on both sides, sort of really going at it for a lot of the time. And the realism still really stands up. Obviously, this is sort of motion capture for certain parts of it, particularly the fighting and things like that. It has a realism to the way that the characters move.
Part of the reason that these trailers work so well is that they look good. The characters are really fascinating. But the stunt choreography for the fight scenes, and there are some behind the scenes YouTube clips out there available that have come from the stunt teams that show the people performing the fighting, and it's really creative stunt choreography, some really creative lightsaber fights. Fantastic to watch the behind the scenes stuff, as well as you say, the actual final product in the trailers. These fight scenes are amazing.
It's the sort of thing that fans have always said that they would love to see, just like a computer generated movie done like this, because you can do things that you can't do with people, and sort of the force moves and the leaps and things like that, where yes, you can do things with wire work and stuff like that, but it always is limited with how much you can sort of really move around. When you watch these trailers, you can sort of really see what Jedi and Sith could really do with utilizing the Force, the way that they can leap around and do interesting moves and force effects and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed the trailers, and just that kind of fully realizing what Jedi and Sith could do with their powers. And sure, they're short, but altogether there's a lot of content there.
Yeah, so like I said, in total there's 5 cinematic trailers. 3 of them are all set pre-game, and they average 5 minutes each, so there's a good 15-20 minutes worth of content there. There's 2 other cinematic trailers that are worth mentioning. They came out once the game was released, and they're sort of introducing big story arcs between chapters. They're called Sacrifice and Betrayed. There's a whole array of other trailers out there that is just based on in-game footage, but these cinematic ones really stand out. So Deceived, Return, Hope, Sacrifice and Betrayed. We'll put links to all of those down below.
With the 10th anniversary coming up and a big new story expansion, I'm kind of crossing my fingers that they've got another one up their sleeve to reveal for it, because they have done a couple of cinematic trailers for sort of big story additions to the game.
Yeah, Sacrifice and Betrayed came in about halfway through.
So I'm kind of crossing my fingers that maybe they've got another one, particularly with the way that they are building up in-game. The story is really building up to something big. They are utilizing some very major characters in the storyline leading up to the next big expansion. So I'm like crossing my fingers that they've got another really cool trailer.
It would be nice. I'm sure we will get a trailer of some sort, whether it's in-game or cinematic. Remains to be seen. The word on the street was that these cinematic trailers cost about $1 million per minute to make, and that's plausible when you actually stop and break them down and take a look at them. And that pricing might have come down a little bit in the modern era compared to when these were first released 12 years ago, but not cheap to make, but it'll be nice if we got something in celebration of the 10th anniversary and the game update 7.0. Okay, and that conversation and that timing of that sort of promotional material and that push for promoting Star Wars The Old Republic kind of leads into our second sort of chapter of this conversation, that is the theoretical potential for a Star Wars The Old Republic movie. And the reason we bring this up is because it's been all over the internet over the past few days. Now, Star Wars Old Republic movie has been talked about pretty much since Disney started announcing new movies, and often it's based on speculation or it's based on a single, Twitter report or whatever. But there's some, reasonable, half credible information coming out that may give us some hope. This started from a couple of sources over the past week or so, A third source that verified some of this information, Jordan Mason, chimed in and gave us a little bit more solid feel for where this might be heading. Talked about Jordan Mason as being a source a couple of times before. He writes for CineLinks, I believe, so he's plugged into information sources. But here's what we know so far. We've got a couple of sources plus additional comments that support the notion that there may be an Old Republic movie in the works, coming out as early as 2023. When these rumors first surfaced, they included the notion that the Old Republic would actually take the slot that Rogue Squadron currently occupies as a release date. And on that basis, it was stated that Rogue Squadron would have to be bumped to at least 2024 for that to happen. And then we get a Taika Waititi film somewhere subsequent to that with a bit of luck. Now today, it's been confirmed by The Hollywood Reporter, which is a big news site that typically gets its predictions correct on the whole, has confirmed that the Patty Jenkins film Rogue Squadron has been bumped from its 2023 slot to a yet-to-be-confirmed subsequent date. So that's pretty solid. Well, that fits in, that dovetails in perfectly with that other information. Now, what Jordan Mason said in addition to this notion that an Old Republic movie is being developed is that it's going to be its own story, not an adaptation of existing material. This idea has been kicking around for a while now, and we know that based on conversations that have been going on for a while, and that in fact it's not the only thing in the world for this era. And that's not surprising in many ways. We've talked about Knights of the Old Republic, which predates chronologically Star Wars The Old Republic. It's getting a big boost in terms of promotion at the moment because it's being ported over to mobile devices, Switch and so forth, and it's been completely remade for the bigger platforms, which is a big deal. So it's not surprising, it's not inconceivable that there is a lot of work going on into this deep historic Star Wars content.
Certainly from looking back at the Disney Plus day that's coming up and releasing a look at Boba Fett and sort of explaining the character. Now that seems quite targeted towards the new modern Disney audience that doesn't know the deeper details of the huge history backstory of classic Star Wars characters, to sort of help prime the audience for the Book of Boba Fett to understand who this character is. Now, if we take that sort of viewpoint and apply it to the release of KOTOR as sort of celebrating Star Wars The Old Republic, it feels like they're trying to heighten public awareness of this era of Star Wars, familiarity with some of the sort of properties that exist, which I'm kind of hoping that, I mean, the big question is that will they work around existing content? Because Star Wars The Old Republic is one of those unique things that existed pre-Disney and has continued beyond Disney, and nothing's overlapped with it, nothing's contradicted it, and we certainly have some big stories like Knights of the Old Republic that is referenced a lot in Star Wars The Old Republic. So we kind of, I think a lot of fans, particularly of the Old Republic era, don't want this stuff kind of upended and changed. Yeah. We know that that's Disney's prerogative. They could come in with something really cool and sort of override it, but at the same time, if you're trying to sort of heighten awareness of that era, it would be good not to sort of upset the fans that are already in it 100% and love the Old Republic era and the games and the novels and the comics and all that kind of stuff that fully exists. And because it's a huge span of time, you know, thousands of years, so you can just pick any drop in the bucket point in time and it's not going to change the rest of it. So if you're not intimately familiar with it, Star Wars The Old Republic as an era occurs about 3,600 years before the events of the Star Wars films, so it's quite distinctly separated from it all, and there's a little risk of sort of lore contamination unless modern era of content sort of reflects back quite deep history. We often talk about Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic being intimately tied to Star Wars: The Old Republic. They're actually set 300 years apart, but because of the way the story unfolds, there are characters that sort of overlap those different timelines. So Knights of the Old Republic fits into the Old Republic era, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of characters and concepts and events. There was also a whole array of books and comics that came out pre-Disney related to Star Wars: The Old Republic. 4 novels in total, a run of about 11 comics. One of the novels was in fact called Deceived, and it overlapped with the Deceived trailer and talked about the events that
built up to that. A very, very good read. And it's interesting that those are not amongst the books that have yet been re-released in the Essential Legends collection books. But if they do be re-released, I think that'll give a little bit more, a bit more of a boost to this whole conversation about the Old Republic. But, just tying some of those bits and pieces together, the Star Wars Old Republic era is wide. It spans, the lifetime of some characters. The trailers that we've just been talking about come nearly 30 years before the actual game, and then the in-world actual game spans a couple of decades now, because there's some time jumps, as well as it taking place in real time, and the game's been going for 10 years. So there's a lot of space for content, for stories to take place. And when we're talking about a Star Wars The Old Republic era film, we're not talking about something that has to be everything and tell the whole essence of the Old Republic movie or existing, the Old Republic game or existing content. We're just talking about something set in that era. It could actually be set before the game and, sort of lead up to the game and be part of a push or a strategy to get people invested more in the game, for instance. And, as I say, Jordan Mason mentioned that it's going to be its own story, not an adaptation of existing material. It doesn't say specifically one way or another whether or not it would involve current characters, but, imagine something that, as I say, those trailers covered Darth Malgus' story over a span of nearly 3 decades. We could easily see Darth Malgus in his prime.
Yeah, there are lots of stories that are kind of hinted at in the video games. We know that for the likes of Darth Revan and Darth Malak from Knights of the Old Republic, there is sort of hints at what they did before the game. There is a huge sort of backstory there that's hinted at, but we don't play it, we don't see it in the game. We kind of get references to it, but there's some really cool things that they could do with those characters set in different time periods before or after video games. And like you say, with Darth Malgus, we see him as sort of like an older character in the video games. We don't know what he was doing when he was younger. So there's all sorts of characters. And then like Satele Shan, the prominent Jedi character in the trailers, we don't know what she was doing when she was younger and things like that. So they could pick a character and give them a huge backstory movie to sort of tie in, or, there's all sorts of interesting things, because it's set in a world where there's just tons of Sith and tons of Jedi. That's just going to be all sorts of fun on the big screen.
Yeah, this point in time was selected for the game so that you could play all these different classes and it would work. It would make sense that you would have masses of Jedi and masses of Sith, as well as bounty hunters, smugglers, Imperial agents and so forth. That was the essence of it, and it clearly works, because it works for the game. There's a ton of people that are just thoroughly engaged with the game and the notion, and it doesn't detract or feel non-Star Wars. It doesn't detract from existing content. It feels relevant. It feels Star Wars. And in fact, the game is doing extremely well. In 2019, so a couple of years ago now, it broke the $1 billion revenue point. It took 8 or 9 years to hit that, but it's well over $1 billion in terms of revenue now, and if they expect to get another $1 billion out of it, that's pretty good going.
Yeah, I mean, obviously video games did pretty well during the pandemic, lockdowns, people stuck inside. We know a lot of people went to video games to entertain the hours, so I can imagine that, that number's a significant higher. We know that we played a lot of Star Wars The Old Republic in the last 2 years while we've been at home, but yeah.
So we're not talking about this movie as a certainty by any means. We're talking about it because it'll be a fun thing to see, and because it makes a lot of sense and there's a lot of scope for it to work really well.
I know over the past years, as you say, people have been sort of wondering what Disney might do, because there's been a couple of different sort of movies and trilogies that were sort of hinted at or announced and no details. Every now and again, fans kind of get into these discussions on social media and they sort of do polls and they're like, what would you like to see from a Star Wars movie? And it's not, I'm obviously a little bit biased, but I'm always excited to see that the Old Republic era always ranks very, very high in what would Star Wars fans love to see, because it's completely removed, and it's an area that the expanded universe and video games have explored a lot, but we've never seen it on film, not really. And I personally love the sort of ancient Jedi and Sith lore. In the video games, you get a lot of sort of ancient Sith tombs. We see the sort of home worlds of the Jedi and the Sith and holocrons and sort of all sorts of interesting sort of Sith rituals and the Jedi sort of codes and temples and all that kind of really nitty-gritty stuff that you just don't really get from the sort of films because it's so far removed from that time period. It's just not part of general conversation. You know, when we get to like Luke and old Ben, the Jedi and Sith are kind of just not really in the collective knowledge of the galaxy anymore. So I just want to see that area explored.
Yeah, so again, we're just talking about the potential of this movie based on credible information and, you know, sort of plausible context. But even if we don't eventually, well, I think it's almost inevitable at some point we're going to get something that predates the original trilogy, predates the prequel trilogy, and sort of dabbles into the space where there was a lot more Sith and a lot more Jedi. It's just almost inevitable we'll see that at some point.
The thing that really sort of clinches it for me in terms of speculation is that we know Disney is very, very keen of creating content that ties very closely into stuff that they have made. We look at Galaxy's Edge. Some people were like, well, they should have said it in the original trilogy era, but Disney said it in the sequel era, so it tied in with their movies. And so they haven't really paid too much attention to the prequel era because that's not the movies they made. And even the sort of original trilogy era doesn't get quite the same sort of merchandise tie-in that the sequels do. And then if we look at them spending what is probably a fair amount of money to remake Knights of the Old Republic, that seems like an odd choice if they didn't have something else to match with that, you know? They tie everything together. You know, they did a Sims expansion where the characters could go to Galaxy's Edge because they want people to virtually visit Galaxy's Edge while they can't travel there, and so sort of build up the anticipation and then go and stay at the Star Wars Hotel and go to Galaxy's Edge and play with the era of the sequels. So this making the KOTOR remake feels like a big sort of red flag that they're going to do something, that there's going to be something else tied to it, because that's a lot of money to spend on something, you know, like, yes, Jedi Fallen Order isn't attached to the sequel era. That's a little bit left field, and obviously that did very, very well. So maybe that signaled that, yes, people do want different eras and different sort of characters and stories because that game did well.
Yeah, and this is all in the context. This conversation was all kicked off by the re-release of the original Star Wars The Old Republic cinematic trailers, as I mentioned, and all of them are going to come out currently. It's only deceived. Probably just AI upscaling. They're probably not re-renders or anything like that. But it's a fun celebration of Star Wars The Old Republic, and it's got to be going somewhere eventually. All right, one other big topic that we want to really talk a bit about is the status of the HasLab Rancor. Now, just to set the tone, you know, I actually quite like the idea of this Black Series scale Rancor. You know, the price point is up there and hard to budget for in some ways, but out of all the things that you could choose, I don't think it's a complete dud in terms of a concept. But there are a few things about the execution and where it is at this point in time that are worth talking about. First up, we're about a third of the way through the crowdfunding campaign timeline, 28 days to go, and it's only just hit halfway. This is a $350 product, $799 New Zealand locally, and I've hit 4.7k out of 9k with 28 days to go. By comparison, and we talked about this a few podcasts ago, they released multiple HasLab products at the same time, or campaigns at the same time, which may have been not the best strategy if there's any sort of overlap in terms of fans budgets. But in comparison, the Ghostbusters Proton Pack, which was released a lot more recently at a price point of US $400, so more expensive, has already hit its 7k goal. So that is locked in to be produced as a 1-to-1 scale Proton Pack from Ghostbusters. And simultaneous to the release of the Rancor, there was also a G.I. Joe Sky Striker jet fighter that was at a cheaper price point, US $230, and it's halfway with 29 days to go, 5k out of 10k, so it's not screaming ahead. Now, obviously, any of these campaigns can pick up a lot as people get fear of missing out closer to the crunch time, but halfway for the Rancor, it's not locked in yet, it's not guaranteed, and there may be a few reasons for that. We saw a lot more people talking about it as a bit not quite as excited about it, not necessarily because they don't collect Black Series, although that is just a subset of collectors, but just didn't quite have necessarily the playability or the uniqueness that some of the preceding HasLab Star Wars campaigns and products have. And the tier 1, 2, and 3, as they come along, pack-ins, bonuses if they hit certain numbers, and maybe not as exciting as some of the ones that we've seen for some of the other products. The first one has been revealed. It is a Black Series 6-inch Gamorrean guard, which we've seen before. And it's carded on a vintage style cardback with a Power of the Force style coin upscaled. Now the problem with this is that you want to display figures with this Rancor, but to do that you have to open these uniquely carded 6-inch figures, which is just a bit of a weird mental conflict. You can pick up Gamorrean guards from other sources. He's quite a sought after character, so it's hard to do. But what happens if they released a Ula or Malakili Rancor Keeper carded figure to go with this? You'd totally want those in a Rancor scene, but you wouldn't want to be opening a bubble carded, uniquely packaged figure of those characters.
The problem, I think, for me, I still love it, but the fact that they went with a Black Series creature. So a lot of people love Black Series. It's not like it's a line that's not loved. But I know a lot of Black Series collectors like to keep their figures in their boxes. They look very, very good lined up, especially when they change to this new packaging with the pictures down the side. They make sort of a puzzle picture when you display them all on a shelf side by side. They look very, very nice. Now, because of the scale, the 6-inch scale of Black Series, we're never going to get big vehicles and a lot of big beasts to create scenes. So they almost make more sense to keep in their box, because you can't really create scenes. There are very few. There's small speeder bikes and small, dewbacks and some of the smaller things, but we're never going to get a Black Series Millennium Falcon. Sort of some of the things that really make it, we're not going to get play sets and things like that on a Black Series scale. It simply takes up too much space. It costs too much. So if something like the Rancor, if you can't build a scene around it, then it is essentially a statue sitting on your shelf, but it's an articulated statue. And if you want a big, impressive Rancor statue, there are other options out there that don't have the plastic joins visible in the knuckles and things like that. It was just a well-sculpted Rancor in a static pose. And so I think the problem is that people are like, well, if I want a really impressive Rancor, I don't want to see all the plastic joins. This is still a lump of plastic from Hasbro. And Hasbro, for all the things that they do, some of their detail, sometimes the execution on things isn't really as high quality as people would hope. But if you go to the likes of Sideshow and some of the other collectible companies that do the high-end statues, the paintwork's on par. You don't get things that sort of, certainly with the premium formats, I've never had an issue with the premium formats. They're always very well sculpted. They look amazing on display. They're one and done. You take them out of the box. They look amazing. And you don't need to collect other things to fill out the scenes. They've got a seamed base and stuff like that. The Rancor, instead of a carded figure, I would want some big sort of sandy base to kind of turn it into a bit of a big display piece. Otherwise, he's just a big plastic toy sitting on a bookshelf. You got to give some sort of scene to make it sort of compete with the statues that have the cool base and everything all sort of sculpted together.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a base, and I mean, I think it's appropriate, and I would have loved to see some figures with this, but it does confuse me and frustrate me that they're coming on unique cards, and I don't really know what to do with that. I mean, I'd love to have this Rancor in our display, and at this point I'd certainly love to see it succeed, but I think we're far, far from being able to state categorically that it is going to go ahead, particularly that it's going to hit some of the post 9K bonus tiers.
I still think they should have stuck with the 3 3/4 inch range. There are plenty of other vehicles and beasts and things like that we just don't have in that scale, and I think if you compare the 3 3/4 inch to 6-inch figure collecting, people love to create scenes and dioramas with the smaller figures. It works. We've got vehicles, we've got beasts, we've got playsets. You can create scenes. The Black Series ones, not so much, because there's not all this extra stuff that goes with it. You can collect the figures, they're very nice figures, but they still look like plastic figures on a shelf. It's harder to create scenes. I know some people are creating some gorgeous custom-built dioramas for their Black Series figures, but they take up a lot of space and they only fit a certain number of figures. So it's kind of like you can't do that with every single figure, or you'll just run out of space very, very fast.
I mean, it is really hard to pick what's going to work. It's hard to even choose what might have mass appeal, or what even we would necessarily like in either 3.75 or 6-inch or other scale, because, as I say, the Ghostbusters Proton Pack is 1-to-1 scale. It's not inconceivable that HasLab would do a Black Series Star Wars 1-to-1 props replica of some sort. I don't know what it might be.
Well, yeah, even just off the top of your head, like just a Sand Trooper backpack, that would probably go fairly well. You know, there's lots of props, and we know Hasbro has the license to do props because they've been making helmets, and they've done like a couple of weapons. They did like the First Order Trooper stun baton and things like that.
Yeah, weapons is a tricky area, particularly with Nerf in the mix as well. But it's tricky to know what they can do, and obviously they can't do them in accurate colouring for Star Wars products. So I think most, well, certainly blaster-like weapons are off the cards, unfortunately. And it is hard to pick. I think a Boba Fett jetpack or a Sand Trooper backpack would be cool, but I'm not convinced that they've got enough mass appeal to really hit these high targets. Talked about, you know, what 3.75 inch vehicle would we really like to see. Maybe a Sith Infiltrator in proper scale would be kind of fun, but again, it's a little bit hard to really guarantee you're going to get 19k backers around the globe for any of those sort of concepts.
The Razor Crest worked because it was a brand new vehicle that everyone loved. It hadn't been done in the action figure line before, and so they had this opportunity. We have a full view of the interior of the ship, so we knew all the scenes and things like that. Like you said, like the Sith Infiltrator ship is really cool. It hasn't been done in a full proper scale, but we don't know what the inside looks like. We don't really see much inside, I
think the visual dictionary, that cross-sections probably gives us enough material, but I think that one would be quite impressive. That's the one that jumps to my mind the most, but I don't know what else I would really, really like to see. I mean, I'd love to see a Sandcrawler or something like that, but I'm not sure that that's going to really hit the targets in terms of sales.
Because most Star Wars vehicles have been done in a number of ways. Like I was like, well, Book of Boba Fett's coming out. What if they did a true 1-to-1 scale for the 4-inch figures? Slave 1. But there have been so many versions of the Slave 1 vehicles, it would be hard to entice people to spend that much more money on something that they possibly own a couple of versions of. So it's really hard to know. But
so the bottom line is we hope this succeeds, because the failure of a Star Wars product is going to trip things up a little bit. Most HasLab projects have succeeded, but not all. In fact, the second HasLab project to get off the ground, the sail barge, the Katana, was the first. Immediately, the second one in line was a $300 Cookie Monster life-size, basically maquette. That failed and tripped things up. Things, slowed down a little bit, and they haven't gone beyond the main franchises since then. If a Star Wars HasLab project fails, they will really have to be thinking carefully about what rate they progress and where they go with the line after that. So about a month to see how this is all going to pan out, and hopefully we'll get enough backers, but it's far from locked in, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out.
We also noticed that whereas there were multiple retailers locally that carried the Razor Crest, locally in New Zealand, EB Games is the only one that's offering the HasLab Rancor for pre-order.
That's a good point. I don't actually think we mentioned that, where we have got solid confirmation now, thanks to some people on the SWNZ message board that communicated directly with Mighty Ape are not going to stock it, so EB Games only locally.
So, and they take $100 deposit when you place the order. We know the Razor Crest is being delayed for quite some time, and you might pay that $100 deposit and then in 28 days find out that the Rancor is not going to go ahead, and that's just going to be sort of a disappointing turn of events.
Okay, so not dragging it down too much. Going to wait and see how this one pans out. All right, we're going to change gears from the big topics and move into conversations about new product announcements and local store reports. In terms of Star Wars novels, Star Wars books, the Essential Legends collection continues to grow. These are reprints of classic Legends books, and including series. We've got the Kenobi standalone novel coming out. We've got Darth Plagueis coming out. We've got Wedge's Gamble, which is book 2 of the Rogue Squadron series, and A Dynasty of Evil, which is book 3 of the Darth Bane series. A little bit of conversation online about the Darth Plagueis novel, because it actually includes in the background behind Palpatine a picture of Darth Plagueis himself. So those will be available locally soon.
Yeah, it's interesting that they use different art to the original version of the book for this.
It's similar sort of style to each of the book covers, but different artists for each. So they've gone out of the way to commission artists to create new covers for all of these books with different styles. It's quite quite fun collectibles in that regard if you like collecting books for their book covers as well as for their content.
Well, yeah, it's if you're a book fan, I know I've certainly got a couple of copies of some Star Wars books where they had different cover art. It certainly is, you reprint the books for the new fans that haven't read them, want to pick them up, and then you get all the classic book fans that want the new versions with new cover art. So it's kind of a fun way to get both sides of the aisle there.
Yeah. Star Wars Lego. The UCS Attack Set is tipped to be formally announced and released by the end of this month, but a bit of information has been leaking online. This is a 6,785 piece set. A very, very large set, second only to the Millennium Falcon in terms of piece count. It's 27 inches long, slightly less in height, so that's nearly 2 feet tall for a Lego display piece. It's not quite in scale with minifigs, but coming close as you can get without getting crazy. And it looks freaking awesome in terms of the overall design and scale. It comes with 5 snowtroopers, 2 AT-AT drivers, and General Veers. And that's a very tempting set that we'll hear more about formally and officially this month.
Yeah, the pictures that are sort of being leaked online look amazing. The UCS is kind of a really fun line. You don't need to go fully into Lego to appreciate this line. You can just buy one like this one or collect just the UCS line because they look amazing in sort of their bigger scale. This one is so terribly tempting. It looks really, really cool.
In terms of officially licensed Star Wars prop replicas, Turou Hawaiki, who took over from Anovos in terms of producing helmets and other costume pieces, have moved away from selling stuff that they have on hand that they already have in production to taking pre-orders for upcoming products, which is a little bit interesting because that is the thing that tripped up Anovos. Now, reason to believe that Turou Hawaiki won't suffer the same fate. They're a much bigger company. They're backed by Rubies and NECA, but again, this is just a little bit of an interesting move away from in-production orders to pre-orders. So amongst the pre-orders is a Han Solo The Force Awakens jacket, and also TIE Pilot helmets. The TIE Pilot helmets are taking a very interesting approach. Fans of TIE Pilots will know that there are about 3 different hero versions of the original trilogy TIE Fighter Pilot with different helmet deco that existed, quite distinct, different markings in terms of the front of the mohawk or the stripes or the colouring. And Turou Hawaiki are actually going to release these, and they've got orders for the different versions, $600 each for a TIE Pilot helmet, but they've got a couple of different versions out so far for pre-order. Yeah,
it's interesting, as you say, that they're moving into the pre-order market. I'd kind of hoped that they would give fans a bit of a break from the drama that Anovos kind of ended up building with just these constant pre-orders.
The other conversation point is that there's still a lot of Anovos people waiting for other products beyond the ones that Turou Hawaiki are currently ordering. So they've only wrapped up the production runs on a subset of all of the stuff that Anovos made. There's a lot of Anovos fans who pre-ordered stuff that hasn't even been touched on or announced, and Turou Hawaiki is moving on to pre-orders without fully wrapping those up or giving people solid information about when those are going to go into production yet.
I know that because they're a new company, they probably are looking for an influx of cash, because taking on the Anovos backlog of orders is basically taking on a lot of debt, and they probably wouldn't mind a little bit of new cash flow. And TIE Pilots are a super popular one. It hasn't been done by cheaper options like the Hasbro Black Series, so they know that it's probably going to be a popular item. So I can kind of understand them doing that. I just hope we don't see too many more pre-orders, so that the fans that are still sitting on 4-5 year wait for their existing Anovos order aren't seeing all these other people buying new stuff and still waiting for theirs to finally be made and delivered.
And also in the product announcement, something a little bit different. Seagate, the SSD manufacturer, is going to be releasing special edition Beskar products. So amongst these, there is an external hard drive, an M2 SSD, and an SATA SSD. The external hard drive makes the most sense. These look like Beskar blocks, and they have some blue underlighting. The hard drive looks particularly cool. The internal SSDs make sense if you've got a windowed desktop box, but they're not quite as universally appealing as external hard drive. No solid information on what sizes will be available or what the pricing, but if we take Seagate's also done other licensed products before, so if we take a look at their Cyberpunk 2077 hard drives, for instance, which they put out for the Xbox, They released them in 0.5 terabyte, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte versions. The 2 terabyte versions was New Zealand $150 for licensed Cyberpunk 2077 external hard drive. So I expect that we'll be seeing that same sort of price point. $150 for 2 terabytes for a licensed Star Wars product with some bling lights. That's probably pretty reasonable. And taking a look at local store reports, NZ Mint, New Zealand Mint, continues its Chibi coin line, moving away from original trilogy and a couple of Mandalorian figures they've done and into sequel trilogy territory with a Kylo Ren Chibi coin just out today and still available to pre-order at the time of recording. 141 New Zealand dollars for a silver chibi coin of Kylo Ren.
I like the chibi coin line. Some of the preview sort of silhouettes look like some of the other sort of sequel characters, so this one wasn't too surprising. Kylo Ren's obviously a popular character. I assume this one is going to sell out well, like most of the other line.
Yeah, now they tease but don't tell us what's coming in terms of the chibi collection moving forward, but based on silhouette images that they've teased, you speculate there might be a raid to follow it, don't you? And that makes sense as well. So they release the chibi coins at a rate of 1 per month, never more than 1 each month, so other sequel characters will be coming down the line and we expect Rey to be amongst them. Random new pop finals. A 4-pack from The Mandalorian is available locally. Mighty Ape has it for $84. This is a 4-pack in a windowed box that includes Grogu, Mando, Moff Gideon, and an incinerator trooper with flames coming out of his flamethrower. Last week in the podcast, we talked about statues from the Star Wars Visions animated series and didn't have a lot of information about them at the time, but very shortly after actually releasing the podcast, Zavvi listed them available. Now, Zavvi shipped to New Zealand for very good pricing. And the 3 figures, Ronan and the 2 twins from the episode The Twins, are actually available to order. And this gives us solid information about the size and price point, obviously. So these are sculpted, non-articulated statues of characters from the Star Wars Visions series. Ronan is 25 centimeters tall. He comes in at New Zealand $139. And the 2 twins are 19 centimeters each, coming in at $85. Very cool sculpting on these, with cool sort of lighting effects executed through, complex graduated paint apps. Very tidy. So if you're a fan of the Visions series, there are some pretty cool collectibles that are available for pre-order now. We've talked about the jewelry and the candles available from the giftware company Short Story. We've focused on the earrings and the pins on the SWNZ website in the past week. They do necklaces, earrings, pins, candles, air fresheners, quite a wide range of really fun, really nice quality products. The earrings actually surprised me when seeing them up close compared to some of the images that are out there. They're really quite splendid products.
Yeah, it's nice and fun to see. While they're not New Zealand based, they kind of feel local, being an Australian company. These are not licensed in the US, so they're only available to ship sort of in the Australasian region, and they're really affordably priced. Local retailers used to import a fair amount of Star Wars jewelry from some of the US licenses like BioWorld, Body Vibe, and Rock Love. They've been kind of a bit more sparse in recent years, so it's exciting to see jewelry available for pretty good prices. A lot of them are silver and gold plated, including lots of classic characters. You've got Ahsoka, Darth Vader, Stormtrooper, R2, 3PO, Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, Boba Fett, the Death Star, the Millennium Falcon, and their pins are really quite neat as well. Most of them have some sort of glow-in-the-dark effect as well, and they also include the Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, Ahsoka, Darth Vader, and Stormtrooper. And if you are a fan of the candles actually include the pin as well, so you don't need to buy both. If you're sort of eyeing up either or, if you buy the candle, it has a whole lot of sort of decorations on the surface, which includes the enamel pin, so you can take the pin off, light the candle, and sort of have a little bit of a themed candle and a pin that you can wear later as well. So they are in stock and shipping now from Short Story. If you go to the website, you'll be able to see the full range. You can buy bundles of like all the candles and things like that. So they're definitely worth checking out. Great gift ideas for Christmas.
A couple of new products showing up at the warehouse. They have got available in stores or online the Mission Fleet Razor Crest. Now, the Mission Fleet series is aimed at younger kids, but some aspects of the characters and the vehicles are actually quite fun for these, and the Razor Crest, I think, has slightly more appeal than even some preceding releases. $55 at the warehouse. and a couple of new Mandalorian themed t-shirts, $22 each. We've seen many Grogu t-shirts. The warehouse has yet another Grogu t-shirt, but the Mandalorian one, the one that features Din Djarin in his episode 1 or season 1 armor, comes pre-weathered. The print is pre-weathered and it actually looks quite cool. I quite like that style, that design. And finally, rounding out the local store reports, Peter Alexander, the Pajama Shop, has another range of Star Wars sleepwear. They do Star Wars runs, Star Wars campaigns from time to time. It's been a little while since we last saw them do any Star Wars products, but they have a range of pajamas for men, women and children, focusing on the dark side, Darth Vader, stormtroopers and so forth. And so they come with shorts, long pants, tops and kids pajama sets.
Yeah, Peter Alexander is a fun company. Their items are a little bit more on the luxe side, that comes with a little bit more of a designer price tag. But if you're looking to sort of spoil yourself and get some good pajamas, these are always fun. They're always good quality. I quite like the print on the pants from this range, but of course the matching t-shirt is fun too. They do tend to sell out online fairly quickly. They typically don't seem to stock large quantities of products for their web store. So if you have a local Peter Alexander branch, it's definitely worth checking them out if you are able to shop at retail stores. Hopefully, fingers crossed for those here in Auckland, they have a fair amount of stock set aside for their physical stores, because this will be another sort of fun Christmas gift.
On that note, that's about it for today's installment. I guess we are done doing talking. If you've got any thoughts on the topics we discussed today, and there were many big ones, we're definitely keen to hear them. Leave a comment on the YouTube page or our website page for this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you taking your time to listen to us share our passion for Star Wars. Stay tuned to our website, SWNZ.co.nz, for Star Wars news for New Zealanders, and our 50th podcast next week, and more podcasts every Tuesday. Don't forget, you can jump on over to either our Facebook group or the SWNZ message boards to discuss all the latest Star Wars news with other Kiwi fans. Kia ora, kia noho haumaru, thank you for listening and stay safe.
Turou Hawaiki, may the Force be with you. If you enjoyed today's podcast, go ahead and like the video, check out the SWNZ Podcast playlist for our other episodes, and subscribe for alerts about new episodes. See you next time.